Okay, today we are going to create a robot that is your personal assistant in Illustrator. To begin, you're going to go to the Start menu and you're going to type in ILL in the search bar until you find Adobe Illustrator. You're going to open the program. It'll say Get Started, create something new, so we're going to click Create New to double click it. Then we are going to see any recent files that have been made as an option for the new document and any saved files, but you could also use the standard ones. Most of it says mobile, web, print. You're going to hover over to print. That's what we're going to start with for a lot of your stuff in this class. And you'll see some options. Letter is selected. That's actually the size of a standard piece of computer paper. If you go over to the preset details, we're going to change the name to your last name, underscore, it's shift, hold down shift and hit the minus key, your first initial, and then shift and minus to underscore again, and then the title of the assignment is robot, so it should be your last name, underscore, first initial, underscore, robot. You can see the width and the height and the unit that it's set to as points. I'm going to change it from points to inches by clicking and dragging so that you can see in this toolbar. 8.5 inches by 11 inches is your standard piece of computer paper. We're going to leave it in portrait orientation, but you could also change it to landscape orientation. But since we're doing a robot, we'll just leave it into the portrait of the robot. We're going to leave the artboards at 1, and we're not going to touch any other settings for right now, and click Create. Here's your artboard. So I already have some tools open. I'm going to show you how to set it up like this so that you can work. But this white piece of paper is your artboard. Everything that is on this artboard is part of your artwork. Everything that is off of this white piece of paper on this gray area does not print. So you want your design to be entirely on this white piece of paper. So I'm going to close these windows and I'm going to show you how to use your tools. So your tools are on the left side, the left panel over here. Your properties are on the right panel over here. I'm going to go back to where it says Essentials at the top, and I'm going to hit Reset Essentials so that they all go back to how they were when you guys start. So this is how you can change your workspace. So you can have a lot of various different settings over here, and you can even save your workspaces the way you want. I just like to go back to Essentials because it helps me just start afresh. So now I'm going to show you we're going to use the selection tool, which is this black arrow. Then we're going to use the rectangle tool. So if you click on the rectangle tool, you'll see there's a whole bunch of tools in this tool panel. If you click on it and then drag your cursor all the way over to the right and then click, it will tear off these tools like I had them so that they're all right here. These are the shapes you're going to use to create your robot. Then we have a line segment tool. You're also going to use this one. So I'm going to hold down, click, and then I'm going to move my cursor over, and then I'm going to tear off these tools. So there's my lines. So your robot has to have each of these tools in its design, but these are the only tools you get to use. So you're going to use this selection tool, the shortcut is V. It'll tell you what the shortcut is in the parentheses. You're going to use the rectangle tool, the shortcut is M, and you're going to use the line segment tool. You're also going to change the colors, which is the fill and the stroke. So when you make a shape, it's going to be outlined with a stroke and filled in with a color. So I am going to make a rectangle by clicking on the rectangle tool and then clicking and dragging my rectangle. So you can see you have a blue selection line around your rectangle when you're done. You're going to click on the selection tool and then click off of it so that you can see what you've done. Anytime you hover over it, it'll turn blue on the path. Shapes are made up of paths and anchor points because vectors are done mathematically. It's not pixel based, it's not like your little Mario characters that are 8-bit. This is a mathematically based software with vectors. So it is composed of dots that are called points, anchor points, and lines that connect the dots called paths. So this is a closed path, and we're going to fill it in with a color. So I'm going to click on this white bar where it says white box where it says fill, double click, and then the color picker will pop up. You can adjust this rainbow slider by clicking and dragging your cursor to a color that you want to use. Let's try this purple color. The new color you selected will be on top and the old color will be on the bottom. You can click anywhere in this box to get a tint or a shade of purple. And then I'm going to click OK. Now you see it didn't change anything because that rectangle wasn't selected. So we're going to click and we're going to make a new rectangle on top of this rectangle, and it's going to be purple. If you want to delete something, you can hit delete and it'll go away on the keyboard while it's selected. So I'm going to select this shape by clicking on it, and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to make another rectangle, and this time I'm going to change the color before I make the rectangle. And I'm going to make it red. And then I'm going to make another rectangle that is over here. And I'm going to take the selection tool. I can click and drag in the middle of this rectangle and move it around. I can also click on the corners and resize it. So you already see I could have a robot head and a robot body, but we need to use all of these shapes. So I am going to now show you how to use the ellipse tool. The ellipse tool is a circle, but it could be an oval. So you click and you drag and you make a circle. So this kind of looks like a space helmet to me. So I'm going to make it have a black outline and a white fill. So I'm going to double click on the fill and click on the white. It's a little bit off-white. And this is going to be the space helmet. But I want to put it behind the robot's head. So I'm going to right click while it's selected and go to Arrange, Send to Back, and this will put it behind all the other shapes. So now I have this space helmet that's behind him. I'm going to click on the rounded rectangle tool and click and drag, and I'm going to make like a little panel for like an instrument panel over here. I'm going to try to make some perfect circles for buttons. So I'm going to click on the ellipse tool, and this time I'm going to hold down Shift. It will allow me to make a perfect circle, and then I can use the arrow keys while it's selected on my keyboard to move it into place. If I want to copy a shape, I can hold down, use the selection tool, hold down Alt, click on the path, and move it below. So now I have a robot that has two buttons, a little helmet, a head, and a body. Haven't really decided what this robot does yet, so let's use a few more tools. I would like to use a star tool for his eyes. I am going to make one eye a little different than the other eye because he's a robot. I want him to be kind of quirky. So I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to make a star, and then I'm going to use the arrow key to move it. And then I'm actually going to rotate it. So I'm going to click on the selection tool. I'm going to hover over the corner until I see the arrows curve, and then I'm going to click and drag until it rotates. And you can even click on the corners and resize it if it's too big. Now I'm going to make another star for the other eye, but I want it to be different. Now there's some settings for the stars. If you click on the star and you click and drag, and before you let go of the cursor, you can hold down the up key or the down key. So I hit the down key twice and it changed into a triangle. I'm going to delete that by hitting delete. Then I'm going to click and drag and make another star, and I'm going to add points by using the up arrow. And I want it to have lots of points. So here's going to be his other eye, but I want to make this a different color. So I'm going to double click on the fill and go to the color picker and choose this green color for his other eye. And then I think I need to move it. So I can use the arrows to move it, or I can use the selection tool and just click and drag and move it. It looks a little funny there, so we'll put it like that and just a tiny bit smaller. Alright, so there's my robot's eyes. So I now have used the star, the ellipse, and the rounded rectangle and the rectangle. I need to use a few more. The polygon tool works similarly to the star. So when you click and drag and you make a polygon, this would probably work for his mouth. So let me pick a color for the mouth. We'll use like a dark green. And then you click and drag and you can make a polygon. You can actually add sides or take sides away by clicking the up and down arrow. So now I'm going to take the selection tool and I'm going to move this to somewhere where I can see the mouth, and then I'm going to rotate it. So that looks sort of like a robot mouth, but I think I want to add like a lip line, so I'm going to use a line. So I'm going to use the line segment tool, and the line segment tool doesn't have a fill, it's just a stroke, so we need to change this to no fill. And the stroke color is going to be the color of the line. So I am going to click and drag until I make a line, and now he has a little line separating his mouth. Now that line's too thin, so I'm going to select it, and then if you look over in the properties, you can see that you have a stroke weight. So the fill is no fill, the stroke is black, but it's only 1 point. So I'm going to add to the stroke weight so that you guys can actually see it. So now this line is 14 points thick, so it's a pretty thick line, but I want it to go exactly all the way across. So I'm going to move it with the selection tool, and then I'm going to click on the end, and I'm going to drag it until it meets these 2 points. So click and drag. So now I have this little robot, and he's got his little space helmet, he's got his eyes, he's got a mouth. I've used the rectangle, the rounded rectangle, the ellipse, the polygon, the star. I'm going to leave the flare alone for now. I'll show you that at the end. I've used the line, and now I'm going to use an arc. So I'm going to give him like a little design on his helmet. So the arc tool, again, you don't want to fill, so there needs to be no fill on the arc tool because it's just a line segment. It's not a closed path. And then I'm going to click and drag, and it's going to give it a line. Now it has the same stroke as before, so I need to adjust this because I do not want this stroke. I want it to be a little bit smaller, so it's just like a little detail. So 2 points probably fine. So then I can take the selection tool and I can adjust the size of this so that it fits more with what I want. And so there we've got a little design right there. So that gave me an idea that he should probably have an antenna. So I am going to also make a line segment that goes from here to here, and I'm going to have it a little bit more weight. And then I'm going to put a spiral on top of the antenna. So spirals, you click and drag like a circle, but if you hold down if you hold down the up key, it adds arcs to the spiral. If you hold down the down key, it takes away segments from the spiral. So you can make it kind of like a lollipop, like that. Also, if you left click before you use the tool, it takes you to a tool window, and you can have the spiral flip to another direction like that. And click OK, and the spiral goes to another direction. And if you don't like something again, all you have to do is delete it. But I realized that if I rotate this with 2 spirals, then I have like this really fun kind of like heart design. So I kind of like that, so I'm going to use that and just play and see what I can come up with. So now I have like this heart-shaped lollipop kind of antenna. It doesn't look enough like a heart. Okay, so it also looks like it's smiling. Okay, so I have this little antenna. He needs to have a radio, so I think these little buttons are going to be a radio. So This guy is like my Pandora robot. So he will roll over and he will play Siri or Alexa or Pandora or whatever, Spotify, whatever I want. And all I have to do is ask it to come over and control the volume and everything. So it's like Alexa the robot. Now I'm going to use these rectangular grids and polar grids. So the rectangular grid, if you click and drag, it starts with a similar number of segments. If you hold down the down key, it reduces the number of segments. If you hold down the left or right key, it reduces and adds the number of segments on the sides. So you can use these up and down keys to adjust, kind of like that one. So the next thing I need is a flare and a polar grid. So the polar grid is a lot like the radial, is a lot like the rectangular grid. So I'm going to click and drag, and if I hold down the down key, it will adjust the spirals to like a pizza shape. So it's like it could have a pizza oven or something, and then the up key, it's going to add concentric circles on the inside. The left keys are going to take away the dividers, so now it looks like a target until they're all gone. The right key is going to add the dividers back in. So I'm going to take all the dividers away because I don't want them. Alright, so now I want to change the color to a different color so that you can see a fill on the inside of this. So I'm going to click on the selection tool and click off. If there's anything I don't like on this, all you have to do is click and drag, and while it's selected, hit delete. And if you realize that you just made everything go away, you can hit Control Z. That's undo. If you forget, it's under Edit, Undo, Control Z. You can do that several times in a row, and it'll make it come back. Shift Control Z is redo. So it's under Edit. So this is how we're going to make the robot. If you end up not liking something or moving something around, you can always change it. But your robot does need to have a visible function. So I hope this is clear as a radio, but it's not like super clear. So I'm going to add some music notes by making some of these little lines and rectangles. And then I'm going to rotate that little rectangle and then fill it in red. So I have little music notes so I can kind of tell what it is. So that's your basic starter for this project. Have fun, make a creative robot.